The wind returned to Pine Hollow before midnight. It came slowly at first, brushing against the rooftops like the breath of something waking from a long sleep. The town was quiet again, but the silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt like the pause before something inevitable. Clara stood near the edge of the lake, the old diary clutched tightly in her hands. The forest behind her had grown darker than usual, as if the trees themselves were leaning closer to listen. The blue glow beneath the surface of the water had grown stronger. Lucas arrived a few minutes later, his flashlight cutting through the fog that had begun to gather along the shoreline. "You saw it too?" he asked. Clara nodded slowly. The lake looked calm from a distance, but the deeper water pulsed faintly with light, like a heartbeat hidden beneath the ice-cold surface. Lucas crouched near the shore and pointed his flashlight into the water. The beam disappeared into the blue glow. "What do you think it is?" he whispered. Clara opened the diary again and turned to the final page. "The diary says the first settlers found something under the lake," she said quietly. "Something they sealed away." Lucas frowned. "Sealed? Like a monster?" Clara hesitated. "Not exactly." She read the final passage aloud. "The lake was never natural. The forest grew around it to keep something trapped below." Lucas stood slowly. "That doesn't make any sense." But before Clara could answer, the wind rose again. This time it was stronger. Branches shook violently across the forest, and the surface of the lake rippled in unnatural circles. The blue glow beneath the water brightened, spreading outward like veins of light. Lucas stepped back. "Did you see that?" Clara didn't answer. She was staring at the center of the lake. Something was moving beneath the surface. At first it looked like shadows shifting through the water. But then the shape became clearer. Large. Far too large. The light beneath the lake suddenly pulsed. Once, twice. Then the ice began to crack. A loud fracture echoed across the lake as a long jagged line spread through the frozen surface. Lucas grabbed Clara's arm. "We need to go." But Clara couldn't move, because now she could see it. Something massive was pressing upward from below the ice. The blue light grew blinding for a moment, illuminating the entire shoreline. The trees cast long, twisted shadows across the snow. Then suddenly the wind stopped. Everything went still. The ice stopped cracking. The light faded. The lake became silent again. Lucas exhaled slowly. "What was that?" Clara looked down at the diary again. There was something she hadn't noticed before. A symbol carved faintly into the bottom corner of the page. The same symbol she had seen near the lake. And beneath it, written in small, careful letters, "The wind is not the curse." Clara felt a chill run through her entire body. Lucas looked at her. "What does it say?" Clara swallowed. "It says the wind was never the curse." She looked back at the lake. It was the prison. Behind them, deep in the forest, something moved between the trees. And for the first time since the series began, the wind did not whisper. It waited. The fog over Pine Hollow thickened as the night deepened. Clara and Lucas stood frozen near the shoreline, staring at the lake as if expecting the surface to explode at any moment. But the water had gone still again. The faint glow beneath the surface had faded, leaving only darkness and the reflection of the moon above. Lucas finally broke the silence. "We should leave." Clara shook her head. "If the diary is right, whatever is under the lake has been trapped there for generations." Lucas looked out across the water again. "And now it's waking up." The wind began to rise once more, but this time it sounded different. Instead of whispering through the trees, it rushed toward the lake as if being pulled there. Clara noticed it first. The fog was moving, not drifting, flowing. Every strand of mist slowly moved toward the center of the lake. Lucas stepped back again. "That's not normal." Clara turned another page in the diary. The paper was fragile, almost crumbling in her hands. There was a sketch, a drawing of the lake. But the lake looked different in the drawing. The center of the water had been marked with a dark spiral. Lucas leaned closer. "What is that?" Clara pointed at the small notes written beneath the drawing. The settlers believed something ancient fell from the sky long before the town existed. she said. Lucas blinked. You mean like a meteor? Clara nodded slowly. They thought it landed in the valley and buried itself beneath the lake. Lucas stared at the water again. And the wind. Clara looked toward the forest. The wind wasn't haunting the town. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It was guarding the prison. At that exact moment, the lake exploded. A massive wave shattered the frozen surface as something enormous pushed upward from the depths. The water churned violently as dark shapes twisted beneath the surface. Lucas grabbed Clara's arm again. Run! They sprinted toward the treeline as the wind roared louder than ever before. Behind them, the lake continued to erupt with crashing water and splintering ice. Clara glanced back once. She wished she hadn't, because for a brief moment, illuminated by lightning above the mountains, she saw the shape rising from the lake. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't human. It was something older, something that should have remained buried forever. And as it emerged from the dark water, the wind across Pine Hollow began to scream. The wind did not simply howl that night. It roared. Clara and Lucas ran through the frozen grass near the shoreline as the lake behind them erupted in violent waves. Ice shattered across the surface like glass exploding outward, sending sharp fragments skidding across the frozen ground. Lucas pulled Clara toward the treeline. Don't look back, he shouted. But Clara couldn't help herself. For just a second she turned. The blue glow beneath the lake had transformed into something far brighter now, illuminating the rising mist and the towering pines that surrounded the water. The entire lake seemed alive, as though something enormous was forcing its way upward from a place far deeper than anyone had ever imagined. Then the wind screamed, not like the whispers that had haunted Pine Hollow for weeks. This was something else entirely. It sounded almost desperate. The forest itself seemed to react. Branches bent violently as the wind rushed toward the lake from every direction. Leaves and snow lifted from the ground and spiraled into the air, forming a massive storm over the water. Lucas stopped running. Clara, wait. She grabbed his arm. What are you doing? We need to get out of here. Lucas pointed toward the lake. The wind wasn't just blowing. It was circling, like a giant invisible barrier forming around the water. Clara's heart began to race. The diary. She pulled it from her coat with trembling hands and flipped to the last page again. The wind is not the curse. It is the guard. Her breath caught. The wind wasn't trying to escape the lake. It was trying to hold something inside. Behind them, the lake exploded again. A massive column of water surged upward, crashing back down with a deafening roar. The blue glow spread across the surface like lightning beneath the water. And then they saw it. Something moved just beneath the waves. Something enormous. Lucas whispered, "That's not possible." The shape was far too large to be any animal. It twisted slowly beneath the surface, its outline visible only when the blue light pulsed through the dark water. Clara felt her legs go weak. How long has that been down there? Before Lucas could answer, the wind intensified. The storm over the lake grew stronger and stronger until the entire shoreline was shaking. The trees groaned as if they might snap in half. But something unexpected happened. The wind began to push downward. It slammed into the surface of the lake like an invisible wall, forcing the water to crash back toward the center. The thing beneath the lake reacted immediately. The water bulged upward again, violently resisting the pressure of the storm above it. Lucas grabbed Clara's shoulder. It's trying to get out. The blue glow flared brighter than ever before. For a brief moment, the entire lake became transparent. And Clara saw it clearly. A massive dark shape coiled deep beneath the water, its body stretching farther than the lake itself. It wasn't an animal. It looked almost ancient, something that didn't belong to the modern world, something that had been sleeping for centuries. Lucas stumbled backward. What the hell is that thing? Clara couldn't speak, because now she understood the final line in the diary. The settlers had never sealed the creature inside the lake. They had sealed the sky above it. The wind was the lock, and the storm above the lake was the key holding the prison closed. But the prison was breaking. The creature moved again, this time faster. The water erupted as something massive struck the underside of the surface, sending waves crashing against the shoreline. Lucas grabbed Clara's arm again. "We need to leave now." But Clara stared at the storm above the lake. The wind was weakening, slowly, little by little, as if whatever lived beneath the water was draining its strength. If the wind stopped, the prison would open, and whatever had been buried beneath Pine Hollow for generations would finally rise. A low rumbling sound echoed across the valley. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and then the wind did something it had never done before. It began to fade. Clara whispered, almost to herself, "The guard is dying." Lucas looked toward the lake one last time. The blue light beneath the water pulsed again, brighter, stronger, closer to the surface. Then something massive slammed upward beneath the lake. The ice exploded completely. Water surged high into the air as the dark shape rose just enough to break the surface for a single terrifying moment. Neither of them could see its full form, only part of it. A massive black structure rising from the water, covered in strange glowing patterns that matched the symbols from the diary. Then it sank again, but the damage was done. The lake was no longer sealed. The wind across Pine Hollow gave one final, long scream, and then it stopped. The forest went completely silent. Lucas stared at Clara with wide eyes. "What happens now?" Clara looked at the still water of the lake. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Now, it wakes up." Far beneath the surface, something moved again, and the storm clouds above Pine Hollow slowly began to gather.